right, that's the
I guess I thought it's 6:02, we're gonna start on time.
No, it's always been different.
We'll introduce the Firewise, members, I guess,
You better gavel, gavel.
okay, get Dennis Poison here, Poison? Retired forester.
Close enough.
Close enough. Sandy,
Would sign in going that way?
historian.
Would you sign in?
And we have Dennis, Bruce Cozy, and Debbie. Even though her husband had surgery today, she came.
And then we have our communications director. Caitlin.
Audio video.
Thank you, Caitlin.
All right, well, I'm Mike Sutter, anyway, I'm the newest member.
Yeah, and then we have supervisor here, Chris
Chris
Kellstrom.
Yeah, I added her to the agenda here.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we're gonna stick to the agenda here. If we have time, I'll show a video about the LA fires, but if not, we'll save it for another meeting. So, first up is Paul Kelly. I think it must be Paul Kelly down there, just the jacket. And he's gonna talk, he's from the Clear Creek Community Service District, talk about water and where we have enough water for the fires, or whatever he wants to talk about.
I don't know, maybe want to talk about my dogs. No, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm Paul Kelly. I'm the general manager of the Clear Creek Community Services District, and pleased to see the large crowd come. And it's nice to be here to talk a little bit about the district and what we're doing and the water issues. Obviously, whenever you've got fires like the LA fires or any other fires, obviously there's been a lot here in this area, from whether it's car fire, solar fire, multiple other ones. I'm also been in Sonoma County, and we had the Tubbs fire, which destroyed 5,000 structures. My family farms in northern Sonoma County, and then we had the Kincaid fire, and you may have seen at one point in 2019 a picture of a bunch of firefighters sleeping on a lawn in front of a winery. That was my wife's family. And they, as we like to say, we got singed but not burned. We lost a few outbuildings and one tractor. So, very aware of some of the challenges that we have as it relates to that. So I want to just talk a little bit about sort of our system and why we have some advantages and why we have some vulnerabilities. But also talk a little bit about sort of what are the things that we're looking to try to improve it. I know you've got on here different things like grants, but I do want to just mention that all water districts are designed to have a certain amount of fire flow available for when there's a fire event. If all City of Reading or Anderson or even our district had to do was just supply you with ag water or with domestic water, we wouldn't actually need a pipe over about 8 inches in the whole district. So one of the reasons for the larger sizes of pipes is not only to deliver sufficient water for the future, but it's also really to deliver sufficient water for fire flows. The other thing is, as you know, most of our system here was built and installed first in the 60s and then later on added on in the 80s and 90s. And so all of the fire suppression elements of that are based on those designs. So in our district, you may notice we have these little standpipe, what we call wharf head fire suppression or hydrants, which are no longer standard, right? We do have many that are
Got a few minor group.
that are of the standard size, and that takes a 6-inch pipe to actually have that. And they're all pretty designed, even those in LA or in San Francisco or in Santa Rosa in my area or Paradise, are really designed to put out a house fire, maybe a city block, in our case, maybe an acre or two field, maybe a little strip mall, a grocery store or whatever else it might be. But it's pretty tough, not really designed to have 20, 30, 40, or 50 hydrants all turned on at once. And in the case of fires that are moving at a rate of, 80 miles an hour, I know like for us in the Tubbs fire, it was consuming a football field every 8 seconds. So pretty hard to stay out in front of that element, as really said. So it's not really designed to be all turned on. So a couple of things we have looked at, and I've been over to Paradise, I've been over to some of these other places as well. Paradise has a few similarities, but one really glaring difference is they only have one ingress and egress, and so I think that those getting out were really challenged. They do have a gravity flow system from the high point to their east, flowing down to the west. So similar to us, we have a gravity flow. They had limited or almost no backflow devices. So I'll explain to you why that was a challenge to them as it went on. Because one of the reasons for that challenge is they lost power. So when they lost power, their treatment plant was not able to continue to treat water and feed water into the system. And so as the water flowed out of the system, there was an air pocket coming down because there was no water coming in. And as it passed houses that were burning, it basically sucked in all of the impurities from those houses as they burned, and it contaminated their water system. And that's one of the reasons why they're taking a significant amount of time, and they've got $100 million plus of grants to actually replace their water system. Yeah, a couple of dissimilarities, I guess, or things that were not dissimilar. They didn't have a 4 million gallon tank. You've seen we have a 4 million gallon tank up at Cloverdale and Clear Creek Road. They didn't have really pressure for fire flow. So one of their real challenges was they lost a lot of pressure. In the Tubbs fire, that one actually ran from east to west, and again, like I said, there were some 80-mile-an-hour winds there. One of their problems is they relied on pump stations to pressurize their system, and they lost power, and they didn't have backup generators. And so some of that caused their issues. They also had a little bit of the issues of contamination into their pipes because of the backflow element of things. The LA fires, and if you have a video, you can watch it. But some of the things that happened there. That first of all, there's a little bit of a personal tragedy. My cousin lost his house that his dad built in 1952 in Altadena, and I can still remember seeing my grandfather in that house when I was a little kid. But one of their big challenges was that they turned on 30, 40, some odd hydrants all at once on this block, and then they went to the next block, and the next block, and they lost power, and their pumping system was not able to keep up, and then they had major leaks, basically like turning on so many of those hydrants. Obviously, they had some other issues related to that. So they're reliant. So one of the dissimilarities to our system is their reliance on the pumps and some of the loss of power. So just so to remind you of our system is we get our water right from the Whiskeytown Dam. And there's two major valves at the base of Whiskeytown Dam. And there are two locations or intakes, one near the bottom of the dam and one about 90 feet up from the bottom. A lot of that water goes through the Reading power generating plant. That then comes to our treatment plant. We treat our water, we put it into a 1 million gallon tank, run it into a 42 and 46 inch conduit, runs 9.5 miles to that north booster and the 4 million gallon tank. So the gravity feed is a huge benefit to us. So in other words, if there's ever a loss of power at any of those, like at our booster stations or any of those things, there's water still being gravity fed into already know about the high pressure issues that we have. So there's challenges to your houses, and if you don't have your pressure relief valves and all those other kind of things. But on the other side, that means there's always gonna be a very sufficient, amount of pressure at our hydrants. You know, a couple things from the Carr fire and the Clover fire, we ran our treatment plant as best as we could at that time. We've also got a replacement and a newer generator up there to run it. We can reduce our treatment process to get more water into the system as there's need. And as Sandy likes to remind us all the time, at one point here, we didn't have a treatment plant and everybody drank the water right out of Whiskeytown Lake. And so if we ever had to do that, we actually have the valves to be able to turn that over and keep the conduit full of water and keep it flowing. And again, in the Clover and also the Carr fire, we were on a boil water anyway. So in other words, if you're putting that, raw water in there, it's, you'd be on a boil water until you actually get the water clean. But at least you never run out of water. So that's my main message here, is that we will have sufficient water for that. Now I did run, some quickie calculations. If we didn't have that input, I also need to remind you, we do have our 3 wells down at the south end of our system, which is near Gas Point, Happy Valley Road. We have a south booster station, and obviously we'd be running those wells as much as we can, as long as we have power, to backfill the system as well.
Right there by West Valley High School, right? Yeah.
Well, it's south of there, yeah. So, but, there are challenges. We opened one of these main hydrants out here right now and did nothing else and just let it drain the tank. It would take about 40 hours to drain the tank. If you opened, 6 hydrants, and again, nothing else was running and no water's coming into the system, our 4 million gallon tank would last about 6 or 7 hours. And if you opened up 20 hydrants, it'd last maybe an hour or 2. So that's why I started with, the good news is there wouldn't be, we don't foresee a situation in which there wouldn't be water coming in, because we've got Whiskeytown Dam there. Now, if we drain Whiskeytown Dam, I think we're all agree with our so again, we can modify our treatment process. We can absolutely have emergency. We can put water into the system, raw water into the system. And we've got the backfill from our wells. Our real vulnerability is our aging pipe system. I think you all know how challenged we are with the leaks that we've had, whether it was on Lassen or we've had a lot on Flowers and some of our other mains. So treatment of our pipe system is really big for us. In other words, when we're open and closing hydrants, we need to make sure that we do it in a way in which we're not hammering the system and breaking our pipe system. When we're opening them, in other words, the real quite rapid flows. We also need to make sure that some of the other impacts on different zones. One of the things this district doesn't have is zones. In other words, really, there's a pretty natural north zone, which would be China Gulch. There's a pretty natural central zone, which would be like Hawthorne all the way down out Canyon, and then a southern zone would be Melinda. So we don't necessarily have enough valves to isolate those zones, and that's something that we're going to apply for a grant for. But those are things that we have to monitor, right? Making sure there's flow in those different areas. So the other thing that we're doing is I've applied for a grant. I called it the Wildfire Resiliency Grant from the EPA in this case. If I don't get any money from that, I'll try to get it somewhere else. But it's primarily to do an assessment of all of our hydrants and our small hydrants and find out where there's places in which we would replace the small hydrants with standard hydrants and where you would distance those. Also to get a real justification for more storage. So I'm a big believer that at some point this district does need another 4 million gallon tank, and it would be beneficial to all of us to do that. And then, obviously after its, lifespan and, needs to be replaced. And again, thanks to Supervisor Kelstrom, he's put us in contact with a few more, folks that can help us with grants, grant applications that'll be, super helpful. The other thing about, really, this is part of the reason why I'm a big fan of Firewise everywhere I've been, is that there are other things that we obviously need to do, right? I mean, there's defense and space, there's, making sure that, what the supervisor's working on, that those things get implemented. Because in some ways, we're doing a pretty good job in our area, but it's a lot of it is what's gonna come from the outside and come in, which I think we're vulnerable about. But there's other things too that I think the grant, would help us identify. When I was in Lake County, and Lake County in 2015 and 16 had some pretty big fires at Hidden Valley Lake, CSD there. We coordinated with the local community to provide some tip tanks for helicopters so that the district would fill those. So I think there's some things that you could do maybe strategically out here for that as well. The other element that I would just end up on is that we've already got grant applications for like 1.5 miles of pipe replacement. Told by the state they don't have any money, so hopefully we'll find out anything on those grants, and we're just going to keep applying for those as well, and obviously maintain and keep the system operational so it's available whenever there's a need. So with that, thanks for letting me speak for a few minutes.
All right. Keep on here. Happy Valley Volunteer Fire Department. Give us a brief update.
Yeah, hi, my name's Matt Busher. I'm the fire chief as of October of 23. This is Andy, he's our most recent captain. We aren't just volunteer, we're a combination of career and volunteer, so we're staffed by taxpayer dollars from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday with 3 personnel. And then we rely on volunteers after 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the morning and on weekends. Update with the district, where our volunteer numbers are going up, which is great. Our call response from volunteers is getting better than it has been the last few years, which is, it's good to hear. We haven't had a missed call for quite some time, because the weekends and nighttime, it's kind of a coin toss. Now that being said, we are getting ready for wildfire season again. In fact, Andy and 2 other firefighters just got back to LA on Saturday. So we kind of kicked it off pretty early. Speaking of LA, and we can talk about the Tubbs fire, the Valley fire, the Camp fire, Tar fire. Well, those wind-driven fires, doesn't matter your water source, your water system, the way that fire moves, nothing we can do about it. I'm gonna sit down because of my ankle, but unfortunately I was working in Lake County in 15, 16, and 17 during the Rocky Valley and the North Bay fires in 17. Our instructions when we first got to the scene were life safety only and get up with the fire. There was nothing we could do because the fire was moving so fast, and it was 100-foot flame lengths. LA, like you said, they had probably 30, 40, 50 engines in a couple blocks trying to flow to max capacity, which those engines can flow anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 gallons a minute. So, if we have those same events here, it's just gonna be trying to save lives, and if we have defensible space, we will try to protect homes. That's gonna be across the fire departments throughout the state. We are trying to update some of our equipment, working with Reading Fire to get one of their older Type 3 engines, which is a wildland engine. Same amount of water as we carry on our wildland engines, but it'll have a better pump and more hose capacity. And then our little patrols that you see us run around, usually prevent collisions and car accidents. They're from the 90s, and we're trying to upgrade those with better pumps and a little bit more water, so we can get firefighters that don't have the experience or the training to drive fire engines. They can at least drive those with their Class C license, at least get to fires and be productive. Hydrants, we do personally know on our side practice opening, closing them slowly. Andy actually, on the day of the fire, filled up 750 gallons of water, and I was there, I watched him with my broken leg because I couldn't stay at the station anymore. But that's something we've been working with Mr. Kelly and even with CAL FIRE, is that we have to be careful of it, because if we don't have the water, we can't put out the fire. We've been very fortunate this last year, we didn't lose a single home to a wildfire in our Happy Valley Fire District. We've been very close. We've been very close. We had the 100-acre fire here on Olinda. That was I was quite shocked, and that was a Northwind event, and you saw how long it took us to get ahead of that thing. Yeah, pretty much defensible space is what we need from the public. I wish we could have 24-hour staffing with more people on duty, but it's all about funding. No one wants to pay more taxes. The biggest thing is keeping the fires small during the wind events or any type of fire. So, but we're just moving along, trying to update, continue our training, and learn from other fires and see what they did that helped them and how to slow it down. But we're just kind of plugging along and doing what we can. So, any questions? Sandy?
What's your opinion of the condition of our fire hydrants?
Well, as you said, it's mixed. It's been years of, I wouldn't say neglect, all the ones that we've tried to open have had water coming out of them, which is great. I can say the one on Lassen, it was black. It came out black and they had to flush it about 30-40 seconds to get all the gunk out for the clear water. And that's because it hasn't been flushed for a while, and I think it's a dead end right there on the end of Lassen. But we have not had an issue out of I think we had a total of, since I've been here as fire chief, like 7 structure fires and probably 20+ vegetation fires where we used hydrants on every one of them. We haven't had a water supply issue that we connected to a hydrant. A lot of those ones have been away from the hydrants, so we're doing water shells with water tanks. But we personally haven't had an issue on an incident with a hydrant in a few years that I'm aware of. Other than the ones that are out of service, working with Morgan, when they do shut down long stretches of line for a period of time, she's been good at calling me specifically, and I'll send out a group to all our firefighters. And with our new program, we are able to, we have our hydrants downloaded on an app we can put to our phone or iPads, and I can put a note in there that says it's going to be out of service, so incoming units, for one, will look at the hydrant, they'll say it's out of service, and then they will call for more water tenders or do whatever they do to get more water there. But I personally haven't seen an issue with water or a hydrant yet.
Do we have any out of service right now?
Yeah, I do have several. I know the one on Hope Key, and then where are the other ones at? What's that?
Olinda by Hope Key.
Yep, Olinda right here on Hope Key. And that's the only one I've noticed recently. Is that one on Sean Drive, or is that just a pole we put over so people start running into it? Okay.
Right now, we just have Hope K, the one on Hope K. One of the challenges that one has is that kind of standard for hydrants is to have your main line, and then it's offline, basically a service line to the hydrant, and basically a valve, and then your hydrant. When we did finally get around, the district hadn't done any flushing for probably 4 years, some of it because of the drought. So we did last year, this time, do a lot of flushing. We're doing a little bit more now. So again, not all of them are gotten to, but we'll get to them. But the Hope K one does not have an isolation valve. So the challenge we have is both the cost and the sort of timing on, we're probably gonna have to shut down quite a bit of Olinda just to replace it. But when we do, we'll do it right. So
It won't be during fire season.
Our plan is to get to it before May.
So, Mr. Kelly, just out of curiosity, how many gallons a minute between the wells and out of the fill station from Whiskey Town to the pump? Or are we getting in to the system, roughly?
Well, right now, the way the system operates, it's all based on demand. So whatever's getting pulled out, that's what's being put in. So in other words, we'll ramp up the treatment plant to do that. So like, maybe
What's the max capacity?
Well, I'm gonna answer it 2 ways.
Okay.
The design capacity of the treatment plant is 37 million gallons per day.
Per day, okay.
Okay, I don't have that calculation per hour.
Okay. Yeah, we're gallons per minute on the fire side.
I know it.
For our fire flow, but.
But, as the board knows, and as the community knows, we've got a couple of our filters that are out, so we're about like less than half of our design capacity. So, but most times we're at probably 4,000 to 8,000 gallons per minute coming into the system, and that's mostly over there.
Right, yeah, cause there's that, if there's, like, man.
Right, I mean, all you do if you up that is overflow your tanks, you know, that hold it back. So that's that's the way it's operated, is to balance that. Again, you know, I think just following a little bit what Matt said too is, you know, actually, I don't know what happened in the past, but we're trying to be more like, hey, let's work on collaborating, make sure everybody knows where things are operating or not operating, make sure we are handling our hydrants right, and that group's doing a great job on that. We just also need to make sure we're training, whoever, you know, mutual aid comes in too.
Yeah. Speaking of, I wanted to reiterate too, so, there's been a rumor that said that for several years that CAL FIRE is taking over Happy Valley Fire. Not true, nothing like that's happening in the works. But since the history of Happy Valley Fire District, all the weeds and bushes is responsibility of CAL FIRE. So that being said, that's why we get all the airplanes and the unlimited amount of resources when we have a big fire. If we had a big fire and it was our responsibility with our bill, 2 tanker drops, it would pretty much take out of all of our budget for the entire year. So we're fortunate for that. And then our main responsibility for the people is obviously fire protection, medical protection, vehicle accidents, and public assists. We are the first ones to get there in any vegetation fire, which we've been pretty good this year, saving some houses that got pretty close. But I just want to reiterate that as well, because you don't have any responsibility or authority to go tell someone to cut their trees down. We can go in there and suggest and be like, hey, please do this, but we're working with defensible space inspectors, which through CAL FIRE, I'm sure you saw them running around everywhere and probably knocking on your doors, and some of you might have got some nasty grams saying that your brush was too tall. But we work with them too, so if there's a hazard spot, you can always call us and we'll reach out to them. And we've been working with that all summer long as well, so. Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda is Kelly Middlebrooks from the Western Shasta RCD, which I assume is Resource Conservation District?
Yes, I am Kelly Middlebrooks. I'm a project manager with the Western Shasta Resource Conservation District, and we're the ones that have been implementing the China Gulch Phase 2 expansion project along Canyon and China Gulch and back in there. It was an expansion of the previous fuel break that had been done in 2019, 2020, and then we applied for funding from CAL FIRE to maintain that fuel break for 5 years and to also offer up expansion on it. And so where we're at now with that, we just did a 70-acre expansion. We went through and cut and piled in November. And the plan is we're actually going to be working with the CAL FIRE station located there at China Gulch and Canyon, and they're going to be going through the spring burning. This is the next time they have opportunity to do so. So that's kind of the update on that. The next grant will end next year. There is a plan to do additional spraying of herbicide for landowners that opted in for that to help maintain it a little bit longer. And once that's done, we'll kind of reevaluate where we're at with how much money we have left in the grant. We'll continue to work with CAL FIRE. Ben Rowe is usually the one that helps kind of direct where he wants us to go next with that funding. So it's kind of the update for China Gulch. And then the community wildfire protection plan update. There was actually a meeting last night called in Shasta Lake City to kind of provide some updates and see where we're at with the consultant. I have some details of that if anyone's interested, but I know you guys are really interested in the projects that you submitted, and at this point we don't know what's going to be included yet. That's still up in the air. It's going to be a collaborative effort. This CWPP is effective for the entire county. And so we'll be working with our consultant and all of the other agencies and communities to prioritize those projects on what gets put in there. And then just the last note on that, it is a federally funded grant, and we don't know yet what that means right now because a lot of those are now frozen. Some of our other federal fundings are frozen right now. So we're hoping that in the next couple of weeks we'll have a clearer picture of what that looks like. So if you guys have any questions, just ask. Yes.
I got one up on the bottom of the totem pole. We're all the way down at the bottom of the old White Oak subdivision. There's some private landowners there that don't want to cut brush.
already approached them, talked to fire prevention at CAL FIRE, talked to a few people at the county as well. We've been beating the drum now since after the car fire. We had a fire about 2.5 years ago, right directly across from White Oak, slightly up the hill. We got green belts there that are just, you can't see daylight through, and then we've got one individual landowner that owns Niles Canyon LLC, which is adjacent to the airport.
Yep.
Well, you guys went in and cleaned out China Gulch all the way to the academy and across, and it looks like a park in there. My subdivision, we kinda feel like, whipping boys at this point, because we've been beating the drum for a while. I approached Mr. Kelstrom about it as well, and he told me where to go, in a nice way, not. And anyway, long story short, it's fell on deaf ear at this point, and we're at risk more so now than we ever have been, and then the amount of money that we pay for fire insurance, and everybody's seen a raise, and depending on where they live and what they've got, we don't see any mitigation, but if we have to pay this kind of money for fire insurance, at some point, well, we know that it's probably more likely than not gonna go down. They're getting all they can get out of us now on the California Fair Program. And as you know, there's nothing fair about it. So there's a lot of people who are gonna have to make some decisions that are on fixed incomes. Do I pay my fire insurance depending on what I've accumulated in a lifetime living there? Do I pay my fire insurance? Do I let it go? Or is there some way to mitigate this fire danger to where we're actually seeing something over a period of years? And if the car fire wasn't a wake-up call, this thing going on in Los Angeles is even more so. Luckily enough, I was here when the very first Happy Valley fire went through. We've been through many more since then. Not that are adjacent to me, but worse. So, everybody knows that once it's burnt, if it's not cleaned up, it creates more fuel tonnage per acre, and it just lays there, and then the brush grows up, and then you see all the suckers, everything else, and pretty soon you can't see through it. So if you go back a number of years, 40 plus, and you drove through the valley, you see what happened when that fire went through. So with a lot of landowners, it's unincorporated, they're not building anything on it, but there's green belts that they're not going to build on, but nevertheless, they don't want to seem to step up and do it about it. And one's a really big landowner here. We won't mention any names, but there's nobody here in that aspect. I called him and approached him and thought that it would be better well received, but it wasn't. So that hobby fires, we've had 3 of them down there, and it's the old airport, and it's just full of live oak. Well, we had the big snow. All that stuff tipped over and it continued to lay there, hasn't been cleaned up, you can't walk through it, there's a few trails in there, some homeless in there as well. Everybody sees it, we drive by there, you know, I guess you'd have to be a blind eye not to see it, but, there's only so much the county could do alongside the road, they have prescriptive use it there, I'm familiar with that. But if we don't get these distances cut back, and it's just luck of the draw on the last fire we had, if we'd had more of a wind, it would've took our roads over. And I was really surprised at the amount of suppression, how quick it went out, but what I did see more than anything is for all the fires that we have had around us, some of the evacuation orders that we've had weren't, I don't think they were necessary, but we are a long ways away, and this one that we had that was just right across the street, they really didn't get excited about it. I know these guys responded to this fire several years ago. Right down the hill, Happy Valley, just to get to the bottom of the hill, there was a rest home up in there. It burnt directly across the street. Utility runs this way, Pines this way, and Happy Valley comes on up the hill. All that green belt over the hills, when I worked for the county many years ago, all that was cut and turned back below the guardrail. But those people on the other side have done good, Majestic View and all that, but we're below the lip, we're below the flat here. And there's a lot of citizens that have lived here during the Happy Valley fire, and lost some possibly, Coyote, Lansing, all these areas up here were all affected by that fire. And, I just think it's,
212 outbuildings and 72 houses.
yeah, so when you figure, when that all happened, we thought we'd see a little change, but we haven't, you know, and you beat the drum for a little while, and you get a little complacent, but what we're seeing is older homeowners have been there for a long time, we see people move in and they don't care. So this defensible space thing,
Drop down and hit.
if you're really in tight quarters, you know what's gonna happen. You just sit, you know, with 50, 60 mile an hour wind, the whole subdivision's gone, wiped out. There's no way to stop it. Not enough water's gonna take care of it. And they're familiar with fire, and so am I, but,
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of us here that are getting up in age, and maybe they aren't able to take care of the trees and climb stuff or afford to have it done or pay to have it cut. I think at some point there's gotta be some programs out there, whether it's massacators, whether they have just fresh fields or trees, whatever has to be taken care of, but it is a financial burden at this point for a lot of people that are on fixed incomes to make that decision about homeowners. And we know our water rates are gonna go up a little bit. So there's people that still have wells that are within this district. And if they can use them during a fire, it would be great, but, you know, even just to water the landscape, keep stuff green. And I said, that's what we're seeing all in our neighborhood, you know, every other house, there's a lot of people there that are still keeping stuff green and doing the best they can, but,
Let me,
it's lax.
step in. I think, the LLC, which one's that along,
Niles Canyon LLC, George
Right.
Emerson owns it.
right, George. I think him, and the state, CAL FIRE,
Right.
have reached an agreement, and they are gonna do a fuel break on their property, the entire
That
property.
is my understanding as well.
That whole frontage coming up out of Happy
Right.
Valley, because
Yeah,
Yeah,
we loaded, after all the snow damage, we took about 6, 7 end dumps off of one guy's property, and cleared those out, so.
yes, so, that's a big, large chunk of property.
And it bumps right up to PG&E as well.
Right, and then, up the hill some, on the opposite side of the road, on the North Fork Ranch, CAL FIRE is, they are doing, and she probably knows.
Yeah.
They are doing the CEQA currently,
Yep.
she's probably involved in it. And they're doing the CEQA, and, CAL FIRE will go along that ranch boundary, which is gonna be a huge, long.
Right.
Fire break, 200, foot wide, shaded fuel break.
Well, that's a relief up for people on top of the hill.
Well, it should, reduce the risk for you.
Oh, yeah.
On part of it.
Yeah, most of the time we're at risk is with a northwest wind coming to our small subdivision
Right.
there. And that whole frontage along White House all the way back down to the RC place there, where they have all the little cars and stuff flying around there. That was maintained for a long time when there was aircraft in there, we're going back 50 years, so. And a lot of that hasn't been touched in so long, and then now we got some homeless in there, and you never know what they're gonna do. So, we're pretty much at risk down there, and the fuel tonnage now is threefold over what it's, cause, you know, going back 35 years, we didn't have a lot of tip out then, and we had some major snows, and everybody's lived here, and then when snow hits live oaks, they go down, so.
Okay, well, let's get back, Kelly, can you, explain to the group, what the CWPP is?
oh, okay, sorry, that is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and what that is, it's a plan that we've gone through, working with residents, with other agencies to identify priority area projects to help protect homes and people during the event of wildfire. And so we get together and they put it all together, they prioritize those projects, it's put into a plan. These are like shovel-ready projects. So these are, you know, like, I know you guys submitted like 8 or 9 of them, so like one of those was picked, and all the details of that project will be laid out in this plan. What that allows for is a lot of grant funding. You have to have a CWPP, and it has to be updated. And that allows you to be able to apply for funding to actually implement the projects. And you already have these like ready projects. It's not you're trying to start from scratch or anything. So that's what it is. The Shasta County one has not been updated in, I think it's been at least 10 years almost since the last one was updated. And clearly the landscape has completely changed since then. So that's what the CWPP is. And with the timeline for finishing that is, I think, early next year. It takes it's a big collaborative effort. Like I said, it's not just our district. We are Western Shasta. It's the entire Shasta County.
And so, we've got several projects that's been, submitted, and it will be part of that, CWP plan.
So should a small subdivision, regardless of where you're at, say from Lloyd up to Happy Valley, the top of the hill, majestic view of that area there, there's a big green belt there, and you know there's a PG&E right away there as well. So, do you get the whole neighborhood together? Do you petition everybody? Does everybody sign a paper and say, well, this is what we like done? You want everybody on board with it? How are you gonna go about approaching these subdivisions like that I'm in and below us as well? If they'd be receptive to it, well, would it make things move along a little better if you did have a petition like that?
For what, for
Just
pursuing
to
funding?
submit for aid, to have it cut and done, and you know, a lot of people, they're not willing to take the time out of their day to come up here and sit and listen to you guys, and I said, I think it's a necessary thing, because a lot of people just are complacent, and they wanna just sit there and hope it gets done. Well, you and I both know that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, but it's, grant funding's, cyclic, and so it's what funding is available right now, and a lot of those have very specific parameters, it's not.
My question was just really, in order for you to be aware of the areas that are bad, without having to go on foot, drive it, look at it, and know that it's bad, without, knowing full well that it needs to be done. So without, driving down every road, street, looking at it all, and determining what's gonna happen from one end to the other. So obviously, getting people on board with that.
Yeah, and a lot of, like, the China Gulch Fuel Break, for example, are areas that CAL FIRE's gone through and identified
Yeah,
as having the most potential
I
impact.
have good friends up there as well.
Yeah, so they usually go through, and they're kind of the ones that we kind of follow their lead, and their forester on where we identify these areas, that we can then pursue the funding to go after.
Well, right directly above the academy on the left-hand side going up the canyon, to Happy Valley, all that burn all the way back into that new subdivision that's already on top now. So if you walk back through that, the old road was abandoned there, and there's a gate there. That used to be a fire access road, a lot of that hasn't been opened up again. We have one off the top of Majestic Street that comes down onto Lloyd, so, and those gates are locked. And they're not open all the time. And, so they are on the map. So, and if a lot of people aren't aware of them, the only reason why I know is because we walk.
Yeah.
And we're there and we look at it.
As far as some of those fire escape gates,
Yeah.
I can't speak for those ones, but
Yeah.
if they are a true fire road or fire egress, you either need to have breakable posts or breakable locks, so you can ram it with your.
Yeah, and you don't dare leave them open with everything that goes on nowadays, because it's a dumping ground, so, you have to protect the asset that's there, so I understand that.
I still need to Happy Valley, but with some of the projects I'm aware of, like in the Anderson Fire District, up on top of, Pleasant Hills, that fire egress was supposed to be, it's a rammable gate, it looks big and beefy, but now you're supposed to be able to hit it with your car and it falls over. I do some damage to your car, but it's not gonna.
I've just seen some cars and then they're not gonna get it down. I walked up there and it's getting pretty brushed up. Yeah, there's just a lot of areas and you don't have the manpower to mitigate what needs to be done. And we know the dangers there, and that's why we're kind of raising our hands and asking what's going on.
So, what is our supervisor, what have you got, as a.
Finally. So,
Defensible space and all of that.
Sandy and the rest of you, they have got the county ordinance written, and it should be brought before the board shortly. So, I talked with the gentleman that was writing it, and law enforcement on CAL FIRE's side. Park Fire kind of distracted him for a little bit, but the fire chief called me 2 weeks ago, and he said it's written. They took ordinances from jurisdictions all over the state, found the best parts of all of them. And as far as the big landowners, the last fire ordinance was written to protect the big landowners because they were big donors to the guy that wrote the fire ordinance. I don't handle those, so I'm not protecting none of them. So this fire ordinance, it's been written, it's gone to county council, it's gone back with changes which have been made. County council met today with the fire chief, and they said it's complete, it should be brought before the board. Fire chief and I are working on finding the funding to get a full-time code enforcement to do that fire ordinance, whether it's a CAL FIRE guy or a county guy. We haven't decided that yet. We're thinking of probably find the funding on the county side So help is coming. So we should be able to get this fire ordinance installed. I'm sure it'll be a 5-0 vote, and then we can start, using it, so.
I'm sure glad to hear that. You know, it was started in 2015, SEC 2015 after the Coverdale fire, which was a big disaster. And it was written and rewritten, but the board would not pass it. There was no way. And so 2019, they got SEC 2019 before the board in October and got it passed. And, they voted on it so fast you couldn't hardly get through the door. But they dragged their feet all that time. We didn't have any 100-foot, defensible space protection, and there's a lot of places out here that the brush is right up to the property line, and the neighbor won't do anything. I have the neighbor from hell. He is not gonna, and he has all the equipment in the world. He's got man lifts, he's got excavators, he's got diesel tractors. He won't get out there and do a thing. And it's 10 acres, and if it ever gets going, it's gonna be a real problem. But, anyway,
Well,
I
you'll
really
go through
appreciate, I really appreciate your work, Chris.
Yeah, so do I,
And,
thanks. We
it's
all
been
do.
needed for a long time. We did get, Matt Alexander, he's in law enforcement and CAL FIRE. He served him, his attorney refused.
Well, no,
Because of our
that's,
zoning, because of our zoning.
so there is another part to this that they've actually, loosened up some of the things. So if you, do break a fire ordinance, if you do something like that, then it's an automatic misdemeanor, and it needs to go to the district attorney, which needs to go to the court. So, oftentimes they don't have the time or the manpower. So with this ordinance, they've actually loosened it up a little bit on certain misdemeanors where now they can just do an infraction, so they can just go out and write your ticket, which is probably more efficient than making a court date that's never gonna happen. So, if you're out doing something, absolutely ridiculous, you're still gonna get charged with a misdemeanor. But, for the guy that was mowing his lawn, and it seemed like it was a good day and it caught a fire, then some of those guys, they'll just be getting away with getting an infraction and a ticket. So,
Where do you start the process of turning somebody in, Chris?
let me get the fire ordinance passed, let's get it in place, and then we,
Okay.
if we
Do I
get-
need to
but right
go to
now,
fire
you
department first, or?
go to CAL FIRE, you guys have one inspector? I mean, they're pretty limited.
For us?
Yeah,
Oh, no, it's all, as far as defensible space, that's gonna be CAL FIRE.
Yeah,
Because
right,
They have I think a small cadre of them, and I think there's like 6 and it's seasonal.
There was 3 that approached me about, 2.5 months ago, 4 reads, and very good. Amy was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
She really went through it, and she was just a sweetheart.
so county code enforcement is also where you can go to, and they will come out and, they
Assess it.
assess it, yeah, and if they're living in camp trailers or living in motorhomes on their
Well,
property and stuff.
it's their property, with
Okay.
trees that have just been,
Yeah,
Right.
the snow, and then, and they've been asked to try and take care of it, and nobody's ever done anything.
So that would probably be the CAL FIRE inspector if you get them out there. But when this ordinance is passed, then we'll have hopefully a full-time inspector that's all they'll be doing.
I went through prevention, and they went around and they were really nice. I mean, she was a sweetie, but she went through the neighborhood a little bit, wrote a warning or two, and then she said, then when they don't respond to that, then it's down to law enforcement at that point. So, they've got the clout. So, I we've been holding our breath for a long time, hoping that, nothing's gonna happen over there. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here that have the same issues. But you see just this cavalier attitude, well, it's not developed, or there's nothing on it, or, it just says, well, I don't care where you live. That doesn't really concern me. Well, I hope that ends, because we've seen a lot of, I guess you would say, just apathy, in the sense that they don't care about the citizens that live around them, even though they're big landowners, and I'm not saying they're all that way, but, it doesn't matter if it's a small patch or if it's a big one. It needs to be addressed, and I know Chris is aware of that now, and, I'm glad to see we got some more information.
It's the number one call that we get from the public asking about our services is if we can go in and cut their neighbor's property. I've had some really interesting phone calls over the years. And I've been with the district now, I'm going into my 9th year with them, and it's the number one thing. And I've had people call and say, I will pay you to come out here, clear the property, can you go in the middle of the night maybe, like midnight? Everyone wakes up and it's cleared, like, whatever, and I'm like, no, we can't do that. And we've tried to help neighbors find addresses and contact information for, absentee, but our
know, there's really a good app, anybody hunts or fishes, and it's called On X. It's a little app on your phone. My son showed it to me, and I went down to Park Redemption several years ago and talked to him, so we don't know who owns it. My son took my phone, because we know where we're hunting, shows all the property lines, shows who owns it too. So, if you're interested, you're in a quandary, and you don't know who owns it, go on X, go on your phone, the one you look at every day, or something, it's there, and it will tell you. It's on X, it's called On X, and you'll see it. I'll show it to you right
Mr.
here.
Kellstrom, with that ordinance, is that gonna be a seasonal, I guess not program, but like enforcement time, where
We're hoping to get it all year. We're
All year.
actually, yeah, I've dedicated, code enforcement guy, that's all year.
like, should say, not me personally, but say, I have, some non-defensible space or outside the ordinance, and it's the middle of December with rains, not the middle right now, but am I gonna have leeway time to get that taken care of, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they'll come notify you, and more than likely be complaint driven, so you're gonna have to call, someone's gonna call and complain on you, but they'll come in and say, you need to clean this up, or you need to get this suspended, defensible space up. So, I'm sure they'll give you leeway time, but, not 3 or 4 years, like.
No, right, yeah.
Now.
Just wanna make sure,
Yeah.
not be like, yeah, you have to get it done in 2 weeks when it's.
No, and originally, when I wanted to write it, I wanted to just do federal and state lands, to force them to take care of it. Because there's places like, you go in Thousand Lakes Wilderness area, for instance, and I mean, you can't even walk through the place, it's so horrific, and so I wanted to make it so that the federal government would be forced to take care of their lands, as well as the state and BLM, whatever. And then, Yahoo's telling me I don't have the jurisdiction to do that, except I talked to the guy in Trinity County that wrote the ordinance that they implemented, and they said the federal government would try to fall within that ordinance to get the number of acres or tonnage per acre, removed down to that. So they will do that, they will try to stay within your fire ordinance. But I had so many people like Sandy that had a neighbor that was, and I have another guy from Shingletown that he has goats, his is eating down the dirt. His neighbor, and it's, an LLC, somebody bought it, probably planning on growing pot on it or something, and, owner lives in San Diego or whatever, and it's just choked with brush, and, like CJ says, my place is clean as a bell, but that heck's on fire, my place is on too, so, once I got more and more stories like that, it wasn't just gonna be strictly the state government, the federal government, to clear their lands and take care of their lands, it was going to be private landowners too, so, and this ordinance should cover all that.
You need to move on, or is it okay?
I do have a question, real quick, if you can. Guidelines for property owners to provide defensible space for their neighbors. I've got a neighbor on my south fence line, his home is within 20 feet of the fence line, and I have oak trees along the fence line or just, within 8-10 feet out. Should I be removing, because I've gone through and thinned out a lot of the smaller brush and trees and limbed them up, but if a
But
fire
they're on
comes
this
through-
side,
But
your
they're
trees
on
are on this side,
my side,
they're on your side.
yeah, they're on my side. Or they're all right on the fence line,
So what you're saying is your trees don't bother you, but they're threatening his home.
quite possibly, yes.
So if this fire ordinance passes, then he can turn you in.
Okay, so I have to provide, what, 50 feet?
I don't know.
Well, the other thing is the size of your trees, they're called ladder fuels.
That's why I've lived them up about 6
And if they're up
7
high
feet.
enough and you've got grass cover, it'd be different if it was just solid brush and you can't
Oh,
see
no,
through
it's
it.
grass, but it
So
can
if
get
it's
up to
grass,
knee
and
high.
we've seen it out here on Chestnut, my buddy's got a bunch of ground out there too.
With all the recent defensible space, it all has parameters, which are easy to maintain, so especially on property lines. So it should be much of an issue, but once that ordinance passes, then you'll know what to do.
Yeah, they'll do it.
I did wanna say one thing, there is, we are gonna be hosting some workshops for landowners, to teach them about their defensible space and how to maintain it. And, if you wanna use herbicides, what types of herbicides. We have a college core fellow that's with us this year, and she's developing those workshops right now. And so once that, we'll send out blasts to everyone and let you guys know when we're gonna be hosting those. We can do it in person, out, show you, demonstrate, on property, what to do and what not to do, and be able to answer questions like that.
Excellent. Paul, would that be something we might be willing to host at the boardroom?
Go ahead.
So we could host one out at the water district.
Yes.
With those herbicides, you have to be really careful. Before Paul was our manager, we had another manager that got us involved with the Shasta County Tehama Water Coalition that come around and inspected the soil on your property, and if there was a marijuana grow next door, fertilizing the devil out of their product, and water come through and washed it onto your property, you would get a big fine for that, if they found that, if they tested it and found it in your soil. Well, luckily, we were all paying what we call the fire tax back then, and, luckily it kind of fell by the wayside. I'm hoping it stays there too, 'cause, I haven't been using any fertilizer, but I know the people on up the way do. So we have to kind of look out for that too, just in case they get fired up again.
Yeah, we basically just use a really robust Roundup.
Is it a restricted use permit?
No, it's not.
That's one you buy in Oregon and.
Yeah.
That's crossbow.
Crossbow, burnout, yeah, there's a couple really good ones. You get after them briars pretty good.
I wanted to ask Matt a real quickie. Did you have to does CAL FIRE have to take out permits to cut all those brush piles and pile them up like that?
Not the rest, not from us, we don't have any, authority over that. I don't know.
It's CEQA usually, that the only kind of permitting or anything that would kick
You
in.
know when they're gonna be burning that?
I'm not sure.
Typically fall within the air quality guidelines as well.
Yeah, and
Burn days.
burn days and wind conditions and moisture and humidity.
Sometime before April.
Yes.
Then next year.
Absolutely, yeah, no.
How dry does that pile have to be? You remember when they used to put paper on them and then stack stuff on top?
Oh, we still do.
Oh, yeah, you guys still do.
All right, next up is, Ron from the, Shasta County Fire Safe Council.
Yeah, I was asked to come just give a little update on what we're doing at the fire council. Oh, I probably.
You're good, I'm recording you, don't worry.
I'll walk way over here, I have my back to that, but are you guys, I didn't see an agenda, you guys gonna talk about the mini grants later, or is that something you're gonna put off, or you want me to talk about it?
You're gonna talk about.
Oh, okay, well, I sent it out to the leaders, so hopefully everybody got it, we're able to, provide mini grants to all the Firewise communities, and, they're only $5,000 a piece, we would have liked to have done more, but that was the decision that was made for that amount. And it's really pretty much open to anything that you guys want to do within your Firewise community to, to benefit. One thing that kind of tied in with this is kind of two things going on here. The $500 a year you used to get from the fire council is gone. So you may want to look at, if you're doing education days and all that stuff that you have that money for, you might want to use that out of the mini grant, as well as, some people are talking about doing different signing projects or doing a model house for a defensible space and that kind of thing. It's really whatever you want to do. I sent it out, there's a one-page form, it's just real simple to do. I know Dennis replied back, we have in there, if you can tie it to your risk assessment is good, and I know those are big projects, but, it's really up to you guys what you want to do with it. We're not really putting a whole lot of restrictions at all. And again, once you guys decide, on a project at some time, whether it's, signing or, doing a model home or whatever kind of project it may be, just submit it back to the fire council, we take it to the board, and as long as they're okay with it, then, we're gonna go ahead and do it. One of the challenges we're gonna have, when the decision was made to do this, we had a county coordinator, and some of you may remember, that's where the fire council hired me initially, was as the county coordinator. Well, that grant ended and they didn't renew it. So we don't have a county coordinator anymore for the Firewise communities, and that's why we don't have the $500 a year funding that we were given to the Firewise community. So that all ended. So now that we have the mini grant, the county coordinator is going to administer that. Well, we don't have that anymore. So I just encourage you, as much information and as much footwork as you guys could do would just make it a lot easier. We're still going to administer it at the council. It's just juggling different pots of money to figure out how we're going to be able to do that. And there is rumor, I just heard yesterday from CAL FIRE, there's talk of possibly doing the county coordinator grant again this spring, but again, with budgets and everything, who knows, that's just kind of rumor. as well as the CCI grants, which, you know, we were hoping, they were usually out by now, and they said, no, we're not gonna do them this year. Looks like maybe they might, do the CCI grants in the spring, which would help. We applied, last year, I believe, for some fuel break work, and some of them were in Happy Valley, and we weren't awarded those, but anyway, hopefully if they're open again, we can make another run, at those kinds of things. So, anyway, if you got any questions about the mini grants, I don't know if you printed anything off or, all of that, or, what you wanna talk about, but, you know, feel free to ask me questions, and, we can do that. Our chipping program is really taking off. It seems to be getting more popular all the time. People are really taking advantage of it. So, just to let you know, it's still out there. It seems to be growing, so if you're interested in getting chipping on your properties, I can't remember, we have a project manager, Doug Young, it's on our website as far as, when it is for Happy Valley. It should be, if not now, coming up. So if you guys wanna take part of that, that's good. You know, there's really, not a lot for the fire council to really update. I mean, we do still have the big FEMA grant for the home hardening defensible space up through Whitmore. That's just rolling along. We have a capacity building grant that Sierra Nevada Conservancy gave us to actually start developing projects, put them in a pipeline, so hopefully when funding comes through, we'll be able to do that. Our next big push, and Kelly alluded to it, is the CWDG grant that's open right now, so we want to apply to that. That is a USDA grant, so again, with the new administration, who knows, right? We haven't got any notice that, don't worry about applying, we shut it down, so it's still open, but we're gonna apply and just see what happens. So, we applied for it last year, and it was some unfortunate administrative issues and oversight issues that took place that we weren't considered for it last year. So I was talking about the same thing a year ago. Some of you may remember that we're putting in for this, and we're gonna hope to get it and really help the Firewise communities. Well, we're a year later, and we're gonna do it again, so hopefully we'll have a better turnout this time. But what it is really focusing on in the instructions for the CWDG grant this round is the Firewise communities. I mean, it's actually listed in there, and they wanna kick some money in, so we're gonna write the grant to really support the defensible space and ingress and egress projects basically in the boundary areas, at least initially, for the Firewise communities. So that's really the direction we're going. I've already talked with RCD and Maureen, and they're on board to help us go do those home assessments. So if we are awarded that grant for those that need that defensible space help, I mean, what does that look like? What do I need to do on my property? I'm not sure. We'll have people coming out and just give you like an assessment. Here's what we think you should do, and then, you know, we'll hire up some contractors to come out and help people with that defensible space. So again, we're hopeful that's gonna come through, but you know, nobody knows with grants, just like with CAL FIRE, you know, they shut them down, but now with the LA fires, it looks like they're coming back, so, you know, who knows what that future is gonna bring, but we're still moving forward. We're gonna support the Firewise communities the best we can. We're just kind of in a little lull, and hopefully CAL FIRE will come through with that funding, and we'll be able to hire another county coordinator and get that person engaged and doing some more of that support. Saw a question.
Some of the neighbors, they don't have the money in the books to hire a tree service to come in, and they've got some trees that are pretty bad.
Right.
Some of the ones that could be felled and cut and possibly moved away, but there's a lot of tree work in my neighborhood and people don't have the money, you know, they can't afford $5,000-6,000 to have somebody come in with a boom and crane and cut this stuff and mitigate it, get it out of the way.
Right.
Are there any programs for senior citizens, people on limited income to do that?
Well, we don't have any right now at the Fire Council.
Right.
But the CWDG grant we are gonna apply for,
Yeah.
we're going to you know, the priority, of course, is a Firewise community, but we're targeting, you know, the low income, the elderly, disabled, you know, the people that really can't, or they have a hard time, like you say, they can't
Yeah.
afford to get that work done.
They can.
Or, you know, whether it's financially or physically or, you know, whatever that issue may be. So we hopefully, we get awarded the grant, be able to come in and help people with that defensible space or that ingress egress, depending on where that
Right.
stuff is.
Yeah, there's some that are definitely.
So we're definitely hoping to, that's gonna be incorporated into that grant, so hopefully it'll be awarded and then we can start helping some people with that.
So your new board member for that council will be me, more than likely, so.
So you're gonna be on,
Mary Rickard sat
yeah,
there for
Mary
years.
Rickard's gone, so.
Is probably why the funding was spent up in Whitmore, so, or that you just mentioned, so. So I'll be the new board member on there, so.
Okay,
Keep
good,
her
good.
good for burn.
I know Jim Chapin was, gonna contact and find out now that Mary's gone, who kind of our liaison was
I
gonna be, so.
requested that I be on there, so.
Okay,
Our communication specialist has a question for you.
We're gonna have the Firewise meeting on January 30th.
yes, the Firewise meeting is still gonna go off, it'll be at the KIXE studio, one of our new board members is still part-time at KIXE, so they're gonna, we're gonna be able to use their facility and use their equipment, and they're gonna run it, not us. And they're gonna live stream, you know, part of that meeting on Facebook and YouTube. So, it'll be kind of a new thing.
Just a quick thing to add to the gentleman up front. There is a company called Grind. They have been at our Firewise meetings in the past. They will come out and do a free inspection for people, and they do understand that people are on fixed income, senior citizens and such. They will work with payment plans. So that might be an option for some of your older neighbors that are on tight incomes, because they do understand that people are on Social Security. They just ask for a deposit and then they go from there on that portion.
We've
So
got one particular guy that's in business around our neighborhood, he's really been a great neighbor, super nice guy. I know that he's kind of willed his rates down, so to speak, because he's lived here for a long time with us. Really nice guy, and he does really good job, got the equipment to do it, get it done, do it safely.
For Brian, if anybody needs a card. Lori Templeton is the contact person.
Did you have a question, Dennis?
Yeah, what is the, fire safe council doing with the sod mine settlement?
The Zog money, that's where the mini grants are coming from.
Oh, okay.
Out of the Zog money, and then part of that is being used as well as kind of like a operating fund to keep things going, to keep vendors paid and staff paid. You know, the way it works, at least for us right now, the chipping grant is a great example. So we're out there doing chipping for people, and we're working off of what we call an advance. They allow us to get a chunk of money out of the grant in an advance, and you have to spend it within a certain amount of time. Well, when you get that advance, you gotta spend it down to zero before you can apply for the next advance. Well, you apply for the next advance, it takes probably 4 to 6 weeks to get it. So in that gap time, you're either gonna tell the vendors and everything, you're gonna shut down, or we'll have a source of money to be able to use to keep, you know, the vendors going, to keep the project moving along, and then when the advance comes in, you know, it's just a thing. So, the ZOG money, settlement money has allowed us to do that kind of thing and keep, the Bullskit Ridge field break going and the chipping program going, without a bunch of just kind of weird delays and stuff.
Did Bullskin Ridge get done? I heard it
Bullskin's-
was about done.
Bullskin's real close. They've got probably 25 acres left, and the heavy rains we had, even though it's been dry lately, just pushed them out. So probably April, when they get back in there, they probably got like a week left, and then it'll be done and just maintenance after that.
He mentioned about signage, and I've got my sign here.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a mini grant we spent? We had $500 we had to spend by the end of the year, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we bought a table and a thing we might use at the Strawberry Festival, and I spent a whopping $18 on a reflective sign.
I live on a cul-de-sac, so it's only like one way, so this is kind of small. I think it's only like 3 inch, but I think it's like 4 inch ones and so forth. If you're on a main drag, you may wanna have both sides, a main street or whatever. But anyway, I have this already, so both of them I'm gonna stake. So you get these on Amazon, this was $18, so maybe $25 for a deluxe one.
Yeah, so we will buy those for you, provide for seniors, what's bulk of
I'm a senior.
seniors. Except for him, except for mine.
Where do we sign up?
But, well, you can sign up on, I guess well, you just have to call one of us or text us or send an email to one of us.
So we go ahead and order and pay for it, and then you reimburse us?
We would, send in and buy it.
Oh.
And, you have to,
I would encourage you to kind of organize as a community
Yeah.
and then make a more of a bulk purchase, so.
Right.
The invoice can come in and then we can go ahead and pay for that instead of having, 100 different little invoices to try to pay.
Yeah.
We just don't have the staff to really kind of keep up on that, but if you guys just come together for whether it's buying a bunch of signs, whether it's buying some more stuff that you need for Education Day, or, doing like I think Dennis mentioned one time, maybe a mile home, or it might be for a couple of people, or however far you can stretch it, get in there and maybe help some people, clean their gutters and, get the roofs cleared off, or, whatever it is.
Yeah, and we've got, some additional funds, small amount, that we could use for signage. But they're, reflective, and it's all for, the fire department. If it's smoky or dark, sometimes it's hard to read, read the.
That's for an
street
address. That's an address.
So,
For the home?
Yeah, let's just,
so,
Yeah.
we
My
can,
address, too, yeah.
we've got funds that, we can buy those, provide those for land on. You just have to let us know.
And we've, talking with Dennis as well, with our volunteer association with the fire department, we've talked about putting it out to the volunteers, if they wanna, we can spend maybe 1 day or 2 days a quarter, putting them out as volunteer times into the people, on the people's properties. Once Dennis gets them, once you guys get them, we'll help put them out as well. I haven't got the official okay from the association yet, but I don't think they'll have an issue with that whatsoever. And it's, like he said, it's for us, EMS and law enforcement as well, so.
Good question.
Is there a setback they have to be from the road?
I don't know that.
I mean, as far as the placement of the sign,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That would be really easy to, for a car to not, to run over.
Well, I've got mine like 5 feet off. We don't have gutters or anything. I
There's an ordinance
just
out there.
stuck it down in, waterway.
I'm pretty sure the county has their own ordinance for it, and before we put them up, I probably looked at that. But we could figure it out pretty easily.
Do it parallel to your mailbox if you
Right.
have one.
Right.
That's their prescriptive easement.
Good.
Speaking of the county, they used to come down, and cut all the brush and grass and little trees that wanna grow up. It's been quite a few years since they've been down on Linda Road and done any of that, and it's getting pretty bad.
They were on Bulls Ferry today, last couple of days,
Okay,
so.
they're working their way up.
Well, you probably,
Quite that long.
bring to their attention if you
Yeah.
call Public Works and, let them notify them that they need to come out here and look at that. They're usually pretty good at that, so.
Okay.
I had pretty good luck with the road department, they down on the
That's Public
desk,
Works.
you had a crew out here right away.
Yeah, that's Public Works.
Chris, I have a question. You had mentioned at the water meeting the other night that working on work programs for people that are getting arrested and stuff like that. Would that be potentially something that if they're doing fuel breaks along the roads, would that be something that would use maybe convict crews?
I know ACID uses them right now. ACID uses them quite often, and the sheriff is looking to expand alternative custody program, because, Prop 36 now made crimes again. So, you know, now when you go and steal a chainsaw at Walmart, you can actually go to jail for it rather than get a ticket. So with that influx of new criminals, you know, the jail's getting pretty full, and, you know, so he wants to do an alternative custody program where he's gonna quadruple the size of the farm, day number one, right off the get-go. And then that's something he wants to do, is more work crews like that and stuff, so, yeah.
They had it on the news the other night, it was good. It was a big one. He really, I remember when he had the farm, we were using them all the time, but we used to use them frequently, actually used them for flagging.
Yeah, I think most of those are Cal Fire programs.
Yeah, he also mentioned signage, and, Dennis, we mentioned about, we have some Firewise signs, we're trying to install those in the,
Right.
around Happy Valley, so people at least get a little familiar with, what Firewise is. We're also hoping to get into the elementary school, and, you know, and maybe PTA meeting or something like that, to get the parents aware of that we are a Firewise community, and find out what, you know, what it is, and we tell the Clear Creek, community district, we may put a sheet of paper in your bill, and we'll describe what Firewise is, so we have to work on that. I think that's what our plan was. The only other thing I wanna say is this video that we don't have time for, but if you have YouTube, the name of it was Inside the SoCal Firestorms, and they had some, they call us, no, what are those, this fire, something geographer, I'm trying to think of the word now, anyway, they're fire, geographers. So anyway, it was kinda interesting, they show the guy was actually in the fires down in LA, and he showed a house burning. Then they go back to Google Earth and see the house before the fire, and they said, well, this is why it, you know, caught on fire. Here's the vegetation from the hills, and you can see all these houses have these trees, and the fire just goes down, right down all the trees or whatever. But, you know, it was kind of interesting, the different ways that the houses caught on fire. The thing that I mentioned was, I don't have any gutter guards, but I really don't have anything going in my gutters, but they said that the firestorm, there was all the embers would just come in and load up your gutter and, you know, catch your house on fire. But anyway, if you remember, it's called Inside the SoCal Firestorm, and that's about it. I was gonna ask you, maybe, I have a swimming pool, and I heard these things where you can drain I have a generator too, so I should have power, I should have water, so if they ever came to that, are you familiar with certain products that do that?
Yeah, we use porta pumps, we call them porta pump, it's just, we carry them on our wildland engines as well, with the little draft hose, and if it's got standing water that we can get a good draft out of it, we'll use it no matter what. Swimming pools, use them a lot. If you have your own pump there that's running, we'll use that first, cause that way if we have to leave, that can stay there for the next firefighters. But no, we do use that, or any, rural water source, we call them. You could even have a 5,000 gallon tank on your property if you want, and we'll hook into that if you're not in a hydrated area. So, but yeah, we use swimming pools, and I'm sure you've seen them on videos that even helicopters will dip out of them if they're large enough to put up with houses, so.
I wish that happened on 4th of July in Red Bluff.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, we were actually in my sister's pool, and there was a fire that broke out along Baker Road there, and they came and dipped out of the neighbor's pool. It was pretty crazy to see. Just coming down below the houses, yeah, they'll get water out of anywhere.
I have a tendency, most of you sign it, or you find your name on here, put an X on it. If you're not on here, if you could write your name, and Dennis will send you, updates by email or something. So anyway,
Yeah,
it's right here.
Thank you.
And then, we always put something out for, donations, and this would go to, Community Foundation for the Center for using their, facility. And update and utilities, put that right there. If somebody wants to, contribute, donate for the, using the, facility.
So, just, I know you talked about maybe doing a flyer. I know one other time we talked about using, our ability to get to 2,300
That's it?
All right.